So I'm actually going to do the preview for the last two games that is going to be happening in the round of 16 in MLS first before I actually do the review of the Columbus versus Red Bulls game, because due to the craziness that we saw in earlier game between NYCFC versus Orlando, and I had to make an incredibly long video talk about all the crazy thing that happened in that game, and by the time I finished that video, it was already halftime between the Red Bulls versus Columbus. I'm just kind of waiting for the highlights to see what happened in the first half, and then of course I will do the review of that game. But like I said, we're going to start with the preview in terms of these last two Eastern Conference game that is going to be taking place in the round of 16, and the first one is going to be Toronto FC versus Nashville SC. That is going to be taking place at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time, and I'm pretty sure if you're a TFC fan, this is definitely a matchup you do not want to have to face for your first round, because despite the fact that TFC finished second in the West with a record of 13-5-5, they really struggled down the stretch. I mean, they were really struggling in terms of the attack, and albeit yes, they were missing some of their more important attacking piece, but they definitely was having a hard time in terms of scoring goal. And now they're about to face a team that not only does not give up a lot of goals, and it's a team that Toronto is probably going to have to try to break down, and is one of the toughest teams to try to break down their defense. But you're also playing a Nashville team that is full of confidence, and that attack, which has been kind of one of the problem for Nashville and pretty much the Achilles heel for Nashville this season, all of a sudden look like they're on fire with the way that they scored 3 goals against Inter Miami to win 3-0, and now score 6 goals in the last 2 games heading into this one. Now, this, believe it or not, is the first ever meeting between both of these teams, and I think this is also the first time in MLS history I can remember that we actually have a matchup between two teams that is facing for the very first time in MLS history, and they're going to be facing off against each other in the playoffs. Now, the key points coming into this game for Toronto, obviously they need to find that form that they had in the middle of the season, so that they can, of course, go on a deep run into the playoffs. I mean, remember how TFC were a team that was just on fire in the middle of the season, and they were looking like a team that was destined to potentially head back to MLS Cup this season? Well, like I said, their form heading into the playoffs has not been good whatsoever, and that they unfortunately will have to play against a Nashville team that their biggest question coming in and their key points is that can they continue that momentum that they had in that win against Miami into this game. Now, obviously, I think the advantage for TFC coming into this game is the fact that they have more rest than Nashville has, as Nashville will pretty much play on a relatively short rest, and if this game does potentially go very long and maybe even go to extra time, then TFC does have the advantage in terms of fitness level. However, that being said, if you look at momentum wise, Nashville obviously have all the momentum heading into this game, and this is why when you look at these kind of playing games, and you know, a lot of these teams, even though they're happy the fact that, you know, these top 2 Eastern Conference teams, even though they're happy they don't have to play in the play-in round, and they're just going to wait for, they're probably going to be the one that has the most rest and wait for those teams that play in the play-in round, and pretty much has the advantage in terms of fitness level, as they're going to be the more fresher teams. The disadvantage obviously is going to be, what if those teams that play in the play-in round had an incredible game in the play-in round, and all of a sudden the momentum is going to be with them. And as we're going to talk about in the next game between the Union and New England, that is pretty much the same thing that the Union unfortunately is going to have to deal against a Rev team that definitely had a lot of momentum after they got that late winner in the game against Montreal. So we shall see whether or not if Nashville can, of course, replicate that. I mean, I did say back in my prediction that if there was going to be a big upset in the playoffs, this was probably going to be one, because I just feel like this just doesn't really play, like this kind of game kind of plays in the hands of Nashville, knowing the fact that they're dealing with a team that struggle on the attack and they know how to defend, and especially now their attacks started to get going. I mean, once this Nashville attack started to get clicking and they're able to score goals, this is going to be a very dangerous team going forward. And it's not really a dark horse team anymore, but more like a team that can really make a deep run heading into the playoffs. And I know, expansion team in terms of their history in the first round has not been very good, and there's only been 2 other expansion teams that have ever made it to the quarterfinal. But I think out of all those teams that has the best chance to make it through, I think a lot of people underestimate that Nashville is a team that could actually get to the quarterfinal, and they can actually take down a TFC side that, this is going to be one that they need to find their form that they had in the middle of the season, so that they can of course move on into the next round. But moving on, in terms of what would be the last Eastern Conference round of 16 matchup is the Union versus the New England Revolution. So you know how I talk about before that LAFC versus Seattle seems like a matchup that has been happening so many times this year that, it's hard to believe the fact that they're playing for the 5th time in the round of 16. Well, to everybody's surprise, and certainly to my surprise, I actually found out that is not the most play matchup this season heading into the round of 16. If you want to talk about a matchup that has been played the most coming into the round of 16, everybody would be surprised that it's the Union versus the Refs, the one that has played the most coming into the round of 16, because this is actually the 6th meeting between both of this team this season, and that during the previous 5 meeting, which they of course meet once in the MLS's back tournament and also 4th time in the regular season, the Union pretty much has dominated that series with winning 4 out of the 5 meeting, and the only time that the Union did not win in this meeting was a 0-0 draw that they had against the Revs. So the Revs haven't even won a single game out of these last 5 meetings. In terms of the head-to-head matchup, to show you the scoreline of these last 5 meetings, we have the Union winning 2-0 against the Revs, which was a historical win for the Union because that was the win that basically got them their first ever silverware and clinched the Supporters' Shield during that game. Then you have the Union winning 2-1 on the road against the Revs before doing the same thing, this time at home against the Revolution. Then it was a 0-0 draw between both of these teams, and then the Union did win 1-0 against the Revs in the MLS is back tournament. Now the key points coming into this game is that obviously with the Revs or with the Union, how much they have been dominating this season at home as the only team to pretty much win every single game at home and have a perfect home record of 9-0-0. Can they, of course, continue heading into the playoffs? And also, their dominance toward the Refs this season, can they, of course, continue into the playoffs? And as I said before, just because you dominate a team in the regular season, and in this case, the Union might, even though they might have won 4 out of the 5 meeting, that doesn't really matter when playoff time begin. I mean, playoffs is a complete different animal, and the Revs, they will definitely fancy themselves as maybe one of those teams where they might get dominated in the regular season matchup, but when playoff time comes, they can actually get that crucial win to potentially move on into the next round. And for the Revs, for their key points, I basically just put C Nashville description because, it's basically the same thing for them, where that dramatic 2-1 win that they had against Montreal, can that kind of moment that they had can continue into this game against the Union, because they need to be at their best in this game. And no doubt that when I look at that game against Montreal, even though they had a dramatic win that they had against the Impact, they cannot play like that against the Union. Like, you cannot play in a game where you're giving the opportunity to put the ball into the back of net and you wasted those chances throughout the game, and also lacking in terms of the final third, because if you don't put away your chances, and even if they go 1-0 up in this game, if they don't put away the Union early in this game, it could definitely come back to haunt them in this one. So I think this is a game that the Revs definitely needs to be much better than they did against the Impact, because this Union team is pretty much 5 times better than the Impact that the Revs play in that playing game back on Friday. But yeah, there we have it. That is pretty much it for my preview for these 2 round of 16 Eastern Conference game, and pretty much unofficially part 2 of the review of the round of 16 playoff game. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and as always, let me know in the comments below your prediction for both of these games. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I, of course, will see you guys next time.